Hi. Good morning, everyone. This is Ashish. I'm Managing Director of Data Architecture at a financial institution here located in Connecticut. So I'll be the moderator for this session. The focus of the panel is going to be how AI is transforming the industries. We are also going to talk about some success stories. The AI has become more than just an experiment. It is basically an spine of the enterprise implementation nowadays. The focus of this panel discussion would be mostly around the operational efficiency that AI brings in. We are also going to talk about some smart decisions which AI is making and helping us getting the right insight from the data. We will also talk about some personalized experience that AI brings in to these industries. While we'll talk about all of this aspect, at the same time, we want to make sure that we stay aligned or close to the business goal. We all know that AI is just more than an experiment now. It is a part of the whole ecosystem. So while we talk about that, we also want to make sure that the AI stay ethical. I mean, the way we use AI that brings in, the ethics become the paramount of the implementation. It should stay well governed, and it should be very well aligned with the workforce adoption. So before we dive into the detail, I'll probably start with a quick round of introduction. If you can all talk about yourself and what you do on the day-to-day basis.
Hi, everyone. I'm EJ. I'm EJ Kim from FleishmanHillard. FleishmanHillard, for those who don't know what that is, it's a strategic communications and public relations company within Omnicom. And within that Fleshman, I lead a true global intelligence, which is an intelligence consultancy within. So we are fueling all the insights, actionable insights, data-driven strategic communications work, so that all the advisory that we're doing to Fortune 500 companies and beyond are all very much driven by the data insight as a foundation. So we sell intelligence to fuel our creative ideas and strategic communications to various business stakeholders.
Great. Yeah, I'm Carlos Aguilar, head of product at Haque. I have been in the data space for the past 20 years, always in tech and startups. Did a stint at Amazon and in healthcare, so across a bunch of different industries, and then jumped into the product and sort of vendor side. Started a business intelligence company and joined forces with Haque about a year ago. So pretty much my whole life's work has been self-service analytics, and I think it's probably the most exciting time for that. We're totally revolutionizing how people think about engaging with data, and so everything changed over the last year, and excited for the next couple of years coming up.
Awesome. My name is Moin Haque. I steward data analytics and AI for a company called IFF, International Flavors and Fragrances. I hadn't heard of it either until a couple of years ago, but 6 times a day you taste and smell things worldwide that we make, hopefully in a pleasant way. So really excited to be here.
Thank you so much. That's an interesting introduction. So I'll start with Carlos. You maybe your introduction brings in an important question that so AI, as we started the conversation with, has rapidly moved from just a pilot to a actual thing that we see in the industries. So what are the differentiators for a successful enterprise AI program from those that stay just an experiment?
Yeah, I mean, you teased it a little bit in the introduction, but I think oftentimes we dig into capabilities and we really have to think about the end-to-end use cases, and like really digging in with end users, mapping out the end-to-end workflow is critical for sort of business transformation. It's hard to sit like in a silo in the IT department or in a data team and imagine how these capabilities are going to be deployed. You really have to engage with folks. The technology is also moving so quickly. like 2 years ago, we were working on, text to SQL types of solutions, and they just weren't working. Agents were a massive, massive unlock, and that happened almost, I don't want to say overnight, but it was probably the capabilities unlocked in the course of a month. So you just have to be very engaged in these use cases and be like willing to be very iterative. And sometimes you're going to be too early, right? Like working on text to SQL 2 years ago, it was too early. And so I think being willing to go back to it and pick up some of these old use cases and be persistent and be really, really engaged with business stakeholders and like hearing what their problems are. That's going to be an important collection, a repository for IT leaders to know what these problems are out in the world, so that as these new capabilities are being unlocked, you can really address them and engage with those end users.
That's a good one. So basically, staying close to the business problem is the key for a successful AI. EJ, to you, basically, right? Can you talk about any specific business problem that attracted you to use AI immediately, which eventually translate to a success story as well, if you want to talk about something on that line?
Sure. When you're in a creative business, your output, what you actually sell is the idea. And an idea has to work, obviously. It's not the product is the idea. And also, oftentimes in an agency role that I live in, we are the machines, right? So we have to work and we have to use AI as a part of how we work. So I think 2026, I think we're going to see more agency operate like tech companies. However, the agencies are set up as the humans, the consultants, advisors, billing hourly rates and work. That's how it's been set up. So frankly, using AI to create efficiency actually was counterintuitive because we wanted to build time, right? So as a part of that, we are actually, and this kind of goes to more of a changing the way we work, because we can't continue to charge the way we do. We have to create a different model, commercialization, right? But anyhow, the AI is here. We have to find a way to be more efficient. So that's how we got started, just like a lot of the people. But now we're at a place where, how do we do more epic, creative, more sounding business intelligence that could help our clients make smarter decisions, and also with a lot of crisis comes and mitigation. So you can imagine, like, there are a lot of heated conversation out there, as we all know. So then companies are like, what do we do? What's the next step? So there are a lot of these things like AI can maybe tell you, but at the end of the day, there's going to be still the middleman, like where we fall in, say, interpreting like what it means. So I think we're trying to find a ways of working that where we are still the machines and the people, because that's how this industry has always been established. But now we do have this really good colleague, AI, that can really help us do what we need to do better. So in terms of the ways that we are using it, obviously, whether that's more writing better, really thinking through the strategic territories, or even just like doing a lot of research, which is a lot of basis of the work that we do, talking to stakeholders, fast, timely, cheap. What do, right? The traditional way of gathering insight, it's just too clunky and it's too expensive, and just conversations are happening faster. So we're trying to create, what you guys might have heard, like synthetic audience, kind of like creating a group of people that we are kind of using as a gauge to test ideas, right? So if we are coming up with 3 different ideas that we want to go to the clients with, we want to have some more confidence that these ideas are actually going to stick to the audience that you're targeting. But without doing the research the traditional way, like that's actually what we're trying to do. Is so we create a product called Sage, where it's a AKA synthetic audiences. Again, a lot of companies are doing this, but what we're trying to do is not only doing synthetic, but also synthetic audience that we're keep educating with it, building up the knowledge base, so that we can continue to say that our Sage model is actually more accurate than some of the ones that we tested. So we still do a lot of experimentation and comparison, so that we're not just trusting what's coming out from the AI, but we compare with sort of the traditional studies that we've done, and then we have real data from the massive primary research that we've done, so we can kind of trying to figure out, okay, is this Sage actually spitting out that something make total sense, or is it hallucinating? So I think there's a lot of this process that we're trying to do, but Sage has been a really game changer because, again, clients within marketing and within communication, they don't have a lot of budget. So we have to also be creative and move fast. So I think that's the one winning way that we've been really trying to change the way we work and the way we partner, but also with greater confidence, because it's almost cost too much nowadays for an organization to go out and say something. Your C-suite saying something, the wrong thing, my goodness, you're going to get killed out there on social media. So we're trying to help them draft a message the right way possible that is not going to hurt your brand, hurt your corporate reputation. But then the question is, how do you do this so that's like minimizing the risk? And that's where we come into leveraging AI and leveraging a product that we called Sage, which is our version of synthetic audience, as an example to help that. So that's been sort of the way, like one case that we've been getting a lot of momentum last year. And then this year is now, okay, we have this thing working. How do you take it to another level?
That's interesting. So if I understood it correctly, while the use case is very well explained by you, you're also looking AI as more than just a tool, but a companion to get the right insight, to make the right decisions,
Correct.
and make things a little faster.
Faster, but also hopefully a little bit more strategic and, again, minimize the risk, right? Because at the end of the day, the clients are not paying for the tool. When they come to us, they pay for our trusted advice, right? And our interpretation. So I think that's where we're not selling the tech. You know, we use the tech to do our work so that we can give them the best advice. So I think that's where it's a slightly different the way what we actually do sell.
Sounds good. Yeah. Moin, maybe a question for you. So, as we all know, AI is not just an innovation anymore. It is, and I keep saying that, it's in the spine of the data and the enterprise. So, how do you align the AI initiatives with the core business strategies? I mean, how do you go about approaching that idea? So, you might probably look for a use case, or you look for an AI capability. And how do you go about approaching and kind of aligning that to the core business strategy, or how do you address that challenge? Because we see AI use cases every now and then, right? There are offerings in the market as well, and we always look at the AI offering, and we at the same time try to align that to the core business capabilities. So how do we approach? If you want to share some insight on that.
Sure, that's a great question. And it's been a constant challenge the last 2-3 years. I don't know, many of you have experienced this, but in my 30 plus years of working, I've never seen boards lean in this heavily into this topic, to the point that boards are actually asking how we're using certain technologies and models. So there's a lot of angst and anxiety, and part of the work is really managing up and trying to contextualize it. And context has really been sort of our way to focus onto this. One of the things we've really pushed for, and I'll borrow a page from what many of us have done with data strategies. If you remember, what's our data strategy was the big ask. What's our cloud strategy? Is take that word out. Take the word AI out. Try to actually talk about your business strategy without using that word the way we would talk about our business strategy without using the word data, because they become crutches and they actually get in the way and obfuscate the real opportunity that's there. So we quickly stood up a way to initially just harness the angst and the noise. And we heard it a little bit this morning in the panel. It was beautifully put by our colleague from Mount Sinai. Differentiate between the art of the possible and the art of the practical, because every company is on a different level of maturity and relevance to what they're trying to achieve. And that was our real focus. What's practical? What's not just a business priority? What's business critical for us today? And how is it going to let us be true to what we're trying to achieve, what we've already laid out and gone to market with as our strategies? And we set up a set of sort of steercos. We call it, it was based on a COE model, but essentially it's an AI trust council that evolves our existing data councils, and it brings the digital leadership from across the company and says, okay, this is not, we're not doing business and AI. Let's stick to what we're doing. How does this contextualize, and how do we focus? We did a series of what we call proof of value initiatives. We created something internally called the AI Studio, which let the businesses really come up with opportunities and ideas, and you time box them, and we force them into a one sprint cycle to prove value. It's not a proof of concept, it's not an MVP, it's a proof of value, which lets you really qualify what the real opportunity is. Productivity really isn't an opportunity. That candidly, it gets evaporated into the walls of the company. But what are the real opportunities, and how can we actually realize them? And then out of those sort of hundreds of opportunities, we realized there were common patterns. And then we really double down on those patterns, things like knowledge discovery, things like customer engagement, product to customer linkage, market intelligence. And then when you start to find those patterns, that's where you start to invest. And then they end up scaling much better rather than just continuing to build for a lot of different opportunities. The other piece was really around governance. And the goal there was don't block, but guide. Similar to data, regulations are changing constantly. We have a huge European footprint, so we're beholden to the EU AI Act. The idea there was let's take a principle-based rather than a policy-based approach. What are the principles we're going to hold as a company? Nothing goes to a customer directly without human in the loop. No product or formulation, no clinical trial, no regulatory data. So you set these principles and then you sort of guide the business teams into how to apply this technology to those principles. And those two constructs, a trust council and really this sort of COE of digital leaders, really helped unlock for us.
That's perfect. So proof of value, that's an interesting term that I learned today. And that's definitely important. POC has become something old now. We all do POCs, but I think the key that you're highlighting is POC, it's a superset basically, right? You do POC, but what is the value that you get out of that POC makes it more relevant. So Carlos, I'll probably jump on to the similar question to you as well. What are the standard governance structure or operating model that you have implemented or you have vision to implement in your organization that we can all take benefit of?
Yeah, I mean, I'll talk internally maybe about Haque and how we've thought about AI initiatives and making those successful. So it was a year ago exactly that we had a specific AI team that was mandated with sort of injecting AI into various parts of our product development process. And I think there was some limited success there. And we made the call midway through this year to explode that dedicated team. And that team was, just a handful of people. So just like, call it a couple % of our R&D headcount. And decided to embed AI in every single initiative. And so it went, because we were seeing early fruits of their labor and just like saw that segmenting out the workflow and the R&D efforts as like a separate thing that had to be considered separately, while had some limited success, fractured the product. And we were starting to like sort of ship the org chart. So like now it was starting to feel like there was an AI part of our product, right? And it was segmented off. And so our realization was that embedding AI as a core principle inside of every single product development team was crucial. And we had specific AI researchers that we were hiring at that point. We still do, but our realization was maybe that like everybody had to become more AI native and that every team was responsible for figuring out how AI should be integrated into the product. And maybe to Moin's point, it isn't about, AI strategy and, your core product or business strategy. Like all of this should be reinforced and every team should be thinking about what the end outcome is and how AI can support that. So we sort of like exploded this like centralized team and tried to decentralize the effort as much as possible.
Oh, that's a good point. Would you also like to cover some real enterprise AI stories that you want to share some insight on that? Sure.
I mean, we just went through a case study at Figma. as a vendor, I guess I have the privilege of getting to partner with customers and help them sort of set up their AI strategies as well. So Figma is a great use case. I really do love that one because it truly is, folks that are not used to engaging with these tools who are now empowered. And I think AI, the biggest opportunity there is empowerment and like skilling people up. And so I think Figma is a great use case for that, where folks are just, in your organizations, people are going to be picking up AI tools. It's just going to happen. And there's so much eagerness and willingness to learn and engage. If you can find that and sort of like light that fire, I think it's really exciting. And yeah, Figma, one of the biggest AI success stories at Figma was entirely not really driven by the data team, right? It was empowered by the data team by providing the data, providing the platform, and actually sort of like removing some of the guardrails and allowing for experimentation and more bottom-up innovation. And I think that, to me, that's really, really inspirational and really exciting.
Sounds good. Thank you for sharing that insight. We just, I think, have 4 more minutes. So we'll try to wrap up this as soon as we can. Before I go to the final section of this panel, EJ, I have a question for you. What do you think, what skills do enterprise most need nowadays in order to build a sustainable AI capabilities?
From a skill set perspective, it's kind of boring answer here, but I think the critical thinking and reasoning, that's truly fundamental, but I think I can't emphasize enough. Because I think everything that we're building, if you don't know why or how and what are the building blocks, and almost like being an architect, truly, you're building a building. I mean, not that I'm an architect, but I have to start sketching things out, right? Bottom up. What are the inputs? And sometimes people start from the zoom out version, sometimes like to start from the bottom up. Whatever the problem is, I think that there's a reason why we have a team, because you have people coming in and then have a unified by the same goals, and then you try to figure out how to build it, right? So that there's no hole. Because I think sometimes we work with super visionary people. They don't really know how, but they have an idea. Then there are people who are don't really get to that big idea, but then they know how to do that very nitty-gritty part, right? So I think it's also, as a leader, you need to think about how to cast this power group of people that can come together, again, unify, underlying with the same goals, but then everybody has a different sort of contribution that will end up. But I think that all parts of this, it needs to be really methodical. So I think that critical thinking of really asking the question too, right? And also I was going to say not be lazy, but I think that's also kind of be curious, right? I know that, again, I sometimes when people say that, I'm like, oh, how do you make that actionable to people? But you have to keep asking, because what's spitting out is not going to be something that you want to take and use right away. So how do you interrogate it, what's coming out? How do you keep asking questions in 5, 10 different ways so that you actually can really get to the thing that you want? And I think that is that requires extra resilience, that requires a curiosity, that requires kind of just critical thinking. So again, sounds boring, but I think that that's been something that I've been emphasizing a lot. And in fact, actually part of making this AI everybody's problem, kind of similar to what you're saying. It's not just a product team, but it's everybody. Actually, we just refreshed the competency matrix. So that for my organization, it was about 3 years old. And then I'm looking back, I'm like, my goodness, 3 years old and 3 years ago, and now our work environments changed. Our talent needs changed. So how do you even refresh then what's expected of you at a certain level in a certain organization? And then I also work with analytics teams, but also we have a super uber creative teams and the people who that comes up planners. And so how do you bring them together? The AI is not a data people problem or tool. It's actually open for everyone, but the usage may be unique depending on what your job is and what you want out of it. So I think it's just more of that really try to say this is not falling into one department. But then how do you make this more of a shared thing? And it's a ways of working, not a one department mastering, for example. So I think that's a fundamental skill set from that, the stuff that I talked about earlier. But then also truly just mindset shift has been the biggest thing we've been also double downing on, because you just can't approach the work the same way. You just can't.
That sounds good. So basically, it's a continuous process of learning and it's not just a problem for one department, but all departments come together and cohesively work to solve a problem. Moving on to the last segment, Moin, I have a question for you. So what emerging AI trends will reshape the industries and the operations in coming 3 to 5 years? What do you think? What is your, perspective on that?
So I'm not going to go on the record with AI for anything more than 2 years out or 3 years out. But what we're really seeing, and again, I'm speaking from the perspective of R&D and manufacturing, we are really seeing physical AI take over our factories and transform the way we are restructuring supply chains, the way we're even rethinking product formulation, product distribution, and candidly very bullish about the future of physical AI transforming supply chain from a transformation perspective. The other areas is really around, as we've heard already in some panels, knowledge discovery is the biggest unlock, but the next evolution of that is knowledge activation. How do we actually make the processes not be immutable? So it's not taking a process or a domain or a business function today and saying, how do I empower that with AI? But how do I really think of that as not existing tomorrow, and what does that look like, all the way to how we have relationships with customers and whom our customers might be. So we're really seeing a lot of rethinking there and saying it's okay to draw all that in pencil and re-envision it, because it's a cultural shift that's happening. The consumer is changing. The markets are changing. It's not just happening in silo in the organizations.
That's fair. One piece of advice that you want to give to the organizations who are just getting started with their AI journey. I'm sure most of us are on there yet already. If we are maybe in the experiment phase, or we are probably have built something already, but if you have to share or give one piece of advice, Moin, what would that be?
First, take a breath. It's all good. And really just contextualize, as we heard from the keynote this morning, re-envision that transformation and see a role in that. Be a verb, don't be a noun when it comes to these things.
Sounds good. I think we'll wrap up the session, but before we do that, I just want to open up for the questions, if any, or if someone of you want to share in one sentence, what is enterprise AI success? If you want to share that, let me know. Question or...
Question.
Please, go ahead.
So this is a question for EJ. You mentioned about the challenges of now AI could be a thread of intelligence, which is a product or offering from your team, and we see how deep research is getting better and better. So that is a threat, but there is also a challenge. One of the uniqueness of a organization like you is you have access to data and maybe third-party engagements, which are behind the firewall for some of the deep research like LLMs to look into. So as you kind of use this as an assistant to provide better value, are you also seeing that your clients are saying that I need a piece of that savings that you're making? Are you passing on some of your AI savings in terms of your pricing model? And is it also impacting revenue? Because this is something we are saying to all of our service providers. If you're using AI to do your job, that's good. But how am I, as a client, getting a piece of that AI-related savings?
I don't think we're unique to this. I think that law firms are also kind of figuring this out, and consultancies in general. But I think in the world that I'm in, which is marketing, communications, we're trying to go into more fixed fee model, more value-based. Of course, there's always going to be a pushback from the client, like, I never used to pay this, right? Or, I know you're saving time. So, and you used to charge me by an hour. So what you mean you have to still want me to pay this much for? So that conversation is still ongoing. But by doing a fixed fee, we are actually providing greater value. That's the focus that we're actually doubling down on right now. So that, because if you just go pure, like, this is what you used to get, this is what you're going to get, and then we still ask you the same pay, like, no one's going to pay the same amount. So we've been talking about the messaging be more the value creation. If we still ask you to pay 10, we'll still give you the offer, but plus more, because we can actually spend that time that we used to not have because of how we used to charge you, we can actually reallocate the time to do more of the insight, more of pulling the human part, right? So the interpretation, integration, so we can really get into the higher level value that they never used to get. So that is the conversation, and frankly, it's rewiring the frame of how somebody buys. So I think that's going to take a bit of time, but I think the whole industry has to change. Time-based model is just not working for the kind of stuff that we're doing and the world that we live in. So fixed fee / value-based, but then how you talk about value, I think it's something that we all try to train our consultants so that we can really think about the value equation that truly makes sense. And then and then not only makes sense, but I can actually, from a client perspective, I feel it, I see it, I get the value. So we try to, by reallocating that time and then therefore the output and then outcomes, how we can actually talk about what you pay, still value, good value. Yeah, so that's been something that we're in the midst of right now.
Sounds good. I think with that, we'll conclude the session.
We can wrap it up there.
Thank you so
much, Ashish, and thank you so much to our panelists.